personal power, people positive, the community of connection. This is the Bob Jeswald Show.
It's great to be back again with Rasheeda Ali. We heard in the last episode. If you haven't heard and you want to know everything about Rasheda and her musical background and so much more, she's amazing. We only touched briefly on her grandson who was killed in a gunshot incident, and this is something that had Joanne very near and dear to your heart. Joanne is our fitness expert guru and triathlete and tri-coach and much more, and also a District 7 counselor. And as that being said, she said Granny's on Guard was something she brought to my attention about you. And Joanne, you felt compelled to bring it here today on the Bob Jeswald Show.
Yeah, I mean, I could listen to you for hours and hours and hours, which is probably why you're so successful in the radio.
On the radio.
Yeah, and she brought up Granny's on Guard and that initiative of helping kids get off the streets.
Yeah. As a result of my grandson being murdered, and I can't talk about that very much because it's still an unsolved it's an unsolved case.
Sure.
I think as far as the pain part of it, I've been able to deal with it because Granny's on Guard was born. And the way that it was born, just so people can know, the day after it happened, a young lady called that I had been able to, we were caregivers for another very nice lady. And this young lady called and said, Miss Rasheda, I know you probably could go in the neighborhood and gather up some of the older folk, and you guys take back the neighborhood. Y'all get back with the kids and do what the ladies used to do when we were little.
That's the way it used to be.
And I thought about that.
Lay the law down.
Yeah, and it was okay for them to lay the law down. It wasn't like it is today with a lot of young parents who say, that's my child, and my child listens to me. And my child knows that they don't have to listen to anybody but me. But I have a problem with that because things change. Your parents stopped being older parents. They started being very young parents, which means that they are very young grandparents.
Right.
And the whole thing changed as far as people telling other people's children what to do. It was like, you can't tell my child what to do.
Do you remember the days when your neighbor...
It's like when you used to be... Way back when, Bob.
Okay,
when you
go
were
ahead.
Playing on the streets.
Correct.
In Buffalo, New York, and you could do whatever you want, and your neighbor would be like, Bob, you're misbehaving.
Yeah, and you would
be like,
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, right.
And you would straighten up.
Or they may threaten to say, I know your mom now.
Yeah.
You know,
your son, at least your grandson, had a dad.
Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of people will think too. A lot of these young men don't have the authority figure, or if another man comes in the picture and tries to discipline, don't be telling me you're not my father, because maybe they don't have a father, but moms raise them. But I sort of agree and disagree with that. I know that's part of it. They say they're absent fathers,
right?
But my dad was absent.
Right.
And I didn't shoot or kill anybody.
Right.
I had strong women around me. Mm-hmm. True story. Mm-hmm. And I did have the influence of my grandfather and my uncles. But thank
the
God.
family dynamic is broken.
That's the right way of saying it. Yeah.
I mean,
I have a friend who is a sheriff's deputy. And when, of course, my oldest son may have gotten in some troubles when he was a young guy, and I'd have to go to court. It's no secret. I'm from Columbus. Everybody knew me. Yeah. But my friend who was the sheriff deputy, and he was not a black man, he was a Caucasian, and he was like, Rasheda, don't feel bad. My son is not doing what I need him to be doing either. So here's a guy who's law enforcement who has a son that's acting out. And then I'm this lady in radio who's got a son that's acting out. Then you have pastors of churches that have children that want to do all kinds of things.
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
With regard to my grandson and other children, when the family breaks, if the mother and the father break up, now the kids are over here growing up with mom. Dad is like, okay, just call me when you need me. But then there are I ran into a young lady recently who said, oh, no, my son disrespected me at a football game, and I didn't want his dad to go down there on that field and put him in his place. I said, why not? Oh, no, because he would have put his hands on him. I said, and?
What's wrong with that? That's
exactly.
Right.
So a lot changed when kids got to where they could, call the law on their parents.
Exactly.
Or either just, had parents at bay. You can't hit me. Mm-hmm. Then school. Don't ask me about the schooling and how that changed things. But I saw a lot in my grandsons. 12 days before the one that was killed, 12 days before that, his older brother, who was a year and 5 months older, was shot also.
So you're dealing with that crisis and not knowing, and then 12 days later, your grandson gets
Exactly.
killed. Was that related in any way? I don't know if you can't talk about it.
Well, the thing is, we don't know if it was related because they didn't want to talk about it. Well, the oldest one did not want to talk about it and still doesn't talk about it. And he's 17 now. Wow. When it happened, he was 15. Wow. And so with him being that way about it, not wanting to talk about it, not even talking to the police about it, they could not tie the two cases together.
Gotcha.
So with them also, the 12 days later with the youngest grandson actually being murdered, and it was multiple bullets that hit him. And the kids that were with him, there were 5 little boys with him when it happened, like we're here together, you got a different story. You got a different story.
Sure, of course.
These 5 kids all have a different story. So the police are just like at a brick wall about trying to get to the bottom. So with all of that happening, and I said, okay, I can't save Jalil. He's gone. But I saw what happened with him as a child. He was a good kid, very gifted, both of them. One was invited to go to St. Elmo. Jalil sat down with me and learned piano. The brother actually got a scholarship to go to Swope School when he was 10.
Wow. That's at the local Clemson State University.
But if something goes wrong in the home, if something goes wrong, and I don't know what that something is,
right?
But when parents split up, if they, and I'm not saying this happened in my family, but I've met people. I met older mothers who said that their daughters, their blood daughters, don't even want to hear what they have to say when it comes to raising the children. One lady I was working at Fort Benning in my retirement, and she says, my daughter just puts me in my place. She doesn't want to listen to anything I have to say about helping her raise the kids. She tells me that these are her kids, that not my kids, and I said,
this is just
and that hurt.
Yeah, sure.
So with all of these things happening and talking to different people, I said, well, one thing I could probably do is get with some older folk who want to stay in children's lives, and let's see what we can do.
So this brings us to Granny's on Guard.
Exactly.
So as Joanne was saying, tell us, what is Granny's on Guard then?
Okay. So it was a group of ladies. Well, actually, it was 2 young ladies, myself and Miss Tanza.
Okay.
We were talking after I got that phone call from the first lady, said, maybe y'all can get the neighborhood and take it back. So Tanza says, what are you going to call it? And I said, I don't know. She said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I can think that I can think about my childhood and think how those elders and the parents and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters would take us places and play games with us and maybe take us swimming or take us to the park. I said, maybe we can just have fun. Days, have fun days. Then it hit me, fun day with no electronics, because I wanted to take away the phone for a few hours. And so she said, how about calling it Granny's on Guard?
I like it. So Granny's on Guard goes in. You're not intimidating. If children are respecting, there's some reverence to, pardon me for saying this because we learned from the last podcast, 75 years old. I can say, actually did Joanne give me permission on the last episode.
Yes.
Joanne.
I bless it.
Do you remember that? You blessed it? Okay.
Yes.
So as a 75-year-old who doesn't look it, she's gorgeous, beautiful. Check Rasheda out. You can see her right now on YouTube or WRBL.com. You go in there with this Granny's on Guard concept. You're not packing. You don't have police with you.
No.
You're going in with the other women.
Right.
Tanza's going in with you, or whoever else is going in with you. You're getting rid of electronics. Granny's on Guard comes in. How do you approach these kids who are potentially in gangs or could be, or just being a typical kid on the streets?
Well, at first I wanted to go to the local recreation centers. And I called up one director and I said, what would it take for me to get the rec for a day to have an event with some children? And at the time with COVID, he said, well, I don't know if you can get it through the city. And if they do, it probably would cost you a lot of money, like $500 or something like that. And we're just community. We don't have money. And anybody that joined now, we created a Facebook group. If you want to be a member of Granny's on Guard, you don't have to be a granny. You can join the group page and hopefully make some posts, read what we already have put out there. So this particular director said, well, the kids come to the rec every day after school, during the school year. The recreation center is open all over Columbus. They're all open. So I said, okay. He says, well, why don't you just plan an event on a day that the children are already at the rec?
Okay.
So I said to him, okay, you get the children.
Smart. So now you got them in a controlled environment.
Right. And I said, and I want to do, at the time, 7 to 12-year-olds. And
Impressionable age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I got to thinking about my grandsons.
That's where he was.
And
right.
I remember how they changed after they got over to middle school in the 7th grade.
Seems like it's sad how that is, yes.
Yeah. Well, we fought against it.
Yeah.
Well, you remember, I don't know if you were here when they decided to go 7th and 8th grade mixed with the 6th graders.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I do remember that. I think there should be a separation there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I grew up in upstate New York, and not to digress here, but so most people can relate. I don't know how it was with you, Joanne, Canada, and that, but we were 7, because people would call junior high.
Mm-hmm,
so you were 7th through 9th, and then 10th through 12th. This now you got 9th through 12th, and you're seeing 9th graders dating seniors. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on? This is a nutty picture. That whole middle school, because it is the worst time, because that's when I had my troubles. I went to an inner city school. My parents were divorced, and I ended up by the Buffalo stamping plant, and everyone knows Woodlawn, New York. Tough area. Had a retired nun was one of my teachers. She was good. She was strict. But I would go in the bathroom. I got punched for no reason. Getting fired. I mean, it was just, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about that age group is impressionable. But if I have you, and I see you, I'm feeling a lot like, oh my gosh, I'm going to listen to her. She's like my grandmother. Even though you don't look like a grandmother, but you, from my point of view. But I'm saying a younger child looking up, but you're not intimidating.
No.
But you got a sense of trust,
and
I trust you.
And that's what we thought about. If we were to get with these children, we got to show them love. We got to show them that we care. We got to show them that they can trust us. We got to get on their level to a degree and just be real. That's where I was with it. So when the directors of the recreation centers would call, or I would call them and say, hey, we're Granny's on Guard. I would love to come to your recreation center. We will come with a program. We will first, it's GOG Fun Day with no electronics.
Yeah, I love it.
And then I would prefer, after experiencing with getting the older kids, I said, I don't want the older kids. The older kids have someone already, mentoring groups, empowerment
there's
groups.
a lot of,
for 13 and older. But then I said, now, I know there may be a lady that might have an 8-year-old, but she also may have a 5-year-old. And I don't want to say 7 to 12, so I started saying 12 and under.
So you're catching them, you're capturing them early.
Yeah.
Any pushback? Is it just, you think it's more seamless because they're younger? Or they're receiving your message?
Oh, they are. I just put it down, 12 and under.
Good, I love it.
And tell the parents if they have a 13-year-old and she don't want to leave him by himself, bring him too, because we're not going to turn away any kids, but our specific target are 12 and under.
So as a District 7 rep in these areas, I mean, you're covering more than just, but majority of it is in your district. What do you think, Joanne? I mean, how's this gonna, you seem to be kind of excited about this. I mean, is this a good, are we going to let this thing keep?
No, I think it's a,
we need more Rashedas out there. We need more, Granny's on Guard.
So what we say, I'll say God, if I can say God.
Yes, you can.
God told me a phrase to use, and my phrase at the end of every event or during any newscast is, if there are children in your neighborhood, there should be some Grannies on Guard.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And that's what we do. We've gone from in Columbus from the Frank Chester Recreation Center to Shirley B. Winston to the 29th Street Gym, over to Michael Fluellen Recreation Center on 8th Street, down from Carver High. We've been to churches because the churches need to bring the children.
They're the ones that bring. This is ingenious. You get the rec centers, the churches bring, pastors can help to move the kids 12 and under. And at the same time, by you getting them in your space, then now we can be the influencer, the grannies, and starting with the program of removing electronics. And then what do you talk to them about? So once you do that, so you just sit there. I know you're not just looking at what you lecturing them, don't get into gangs, or it's not that simple.
The first thing that we'll do is have the director introduce the evening. And we've already planned it all out. And then the director will introduce, hey, guys and girls, we have tonight our special guests are the Grannies on Guard. And I'm going to bring up the lady who founded the group, Miss Rasheeda Ali.
Yes.
And I'll go up and I'll say hello to the kids. And then I'll introduce any of the Grannies on Guard, the members from the Facebook group that actually come to the event. And we will step forward and say hello to the kids. And I've encouraged them, if you have anything that you want to say to the kids, take a couple of minutes and say it. Everybody now has something that they like to do. And if you look on our Facebook group page, you'll see some of the things that we've done. We've been down to the military library with an event. And for me, my favorite thing to do, because I was privy to a meeting about trafficking, human trafficking, I decided after someone posted on our group page how to say help me in sign language. So
Fantastic. That's ingenious. Yeah.
I teach the kids at every event. I'll tell them, I want you guys to learn this because there may be a situation where you may need to say help me, but you can't say it out loud.
That's smart. As long as it doesn't get interpreted, I'm not being silly here, but like a gang sign. Somebody starts doing it, it would look very simple.
I tell them that you have to know how to say help me. I said, if I do this, you know what I'm doing.
That's what it is. So you could see this on our webcast. She's waving her hand. If you're listening on just audio, it's like kind of like a pageant wave almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, or just like or up and down Joanne.
But
no, I've heard this.
You heard this? Oh, so you're going.
That's how. That's
you
what
got her condition. You're working for Joanne Kogel. Gosh, it's got to work. This Granny's on Guard. Yeah.
But if anyone goes to our group page on Facebook, if you are online, and just send me a friend request, and I'll invite you to the group.
Right.
You'll see a photo of a hand up, like if you're going to swear on the Bible, if you're in court, one hand on the Bible, the other hand up in the air with the fingers up. That's with the thumb over the palm.
Is the way,
That's help.
Help, okay.
And then when you bring the fingers down, that's me.
Yeah, okay.
So help me is fingers up, thumb over palm.
That's why you're doing it, Joanne, I see.
Is down. Help me. Help me. That's for those who are watching. Help.
Yes, we're doing this right now.
You don't have to have your thumb out.
Oh,
just
so don't make it so obvious.
Yeah. Just that
it's almost like you're waving, but you can go like this.
Right.
I don't know, help me. Okay.
And there are videos out there too, where little children have been taken, made to walk through the airport or the bus station or wherever, and they are being taken against their will.
Again, we're talking about some human trafficking, which is there's so many components to this, Rasheda, which is brilliant. For the sake of time and people want to learn more, is this a national thing, Grannies on Guard, or is it just now local?
Right now it's local with the possibility of New Jersey, because I had a friend there. And you ask about what do? We talk to them, then we let each granny talk. If I can get a speaker, I'd love for you to come one day if you want to.
I'd love to talk about,
Law enforcement can come and talk, and it's brief. And then we take about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, depending if we have a 2-hour program or a 3, and have the fun. Yes. So we take jump ropes, we take hopscotch.
There's life without, you can be part of a family, be part of something without having to be in a gang or to try to prove yourself something that's not really the case, and teach them about love, respect.
Exactly.
There's some unfazed moments here that we're not seeing consequence.
Exactly.
And not just blighted areas or at-risk neighborhoods. We're seeing it all over. Even in the areas of middle class and higher. These kids, this is systemic on all levels.
Maybe before we go,
go ahead.
This story's kind of stuck with me since when
Rasheda.
Rasheda. I can't pronounce your
Joanne,
name.
you need some more coffee.
Yeah, I need
coffee.
I got coffee here and I got water. When we met, and it was just to kind of reinforce that a lot of these kids just need the cycle broken, and that they don't really want to do what they're doing. And it was just your story about I think it was your grandson in the park.
Oh yes.
Where just to end on that, because
Yeah.
I think that was so I thought that was so profound. Of I think it was at Rigdon Park, right?
Rigdon Park.
So,
It's in South Columbus.
And I do want to say this is not a black thing.
Right, and
This is
No,
because
yeah.
our kids are mixed and going to school
Sure.
with all kids. So
Right.
and all kids need to know who their friends are.
Right.
And the parents need to know who this kid is.
You're enlightening these families.
And
about
it's
this.
just not just with kids, it's with the kids and their parents. We encourage the parents to come and stay. But on this particular Sunday, my grandson had asked me to pick him up at the park. And he had been over to play basketball or whatever, and it was my opportunity to have time with him because he lived with his mother, not his father. And I get to the park, and I get him in the car with his little friend, and we're driving out. I'm driving out of the park, but I get to the entrance, and I'm blocked. I'm blocked by about 8 or 9 kids on bicycles and some on foot.
Oh gosh, this is looking bad.
Now, I don't have a spirit of fear. I just don't. Maybe I do when it comes to scary houses and
that's
ghostly
the granny.
things.
That's
Yeah,
the
right.
granny
That's
in
the
there.
granny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So I see these kids and I don't think about who they could be. And I knew at the time there were a lot of 13, 14, 15-year-olds that were picking up weapons and firing them.
Mm-hmm.
But something said, okay, look at these kids. I don't see not one bumper.
Right.
And I reached my head out the window. I said, hey, you guys need to move. I'm trying to get out. And one came over to my side of the car and said, he needs to step out, talking about my grandson.
Oh, really?
Now, let me say right here that these kids probably had nothing to do with his death.
Right.
Because this was 6 months before.
Okay.
But I said, he needs to step out. Step out for what? Well, he knows what he did. And they were arrogant and they were aggressive.
Sounds that way.
But I didn't feel that. I just thought about it afterwards because my 41-year-old son said, Ma, please don't do that anymore. Because you don't know these kids.
Yeah,
you
right,
know?
right.
But I just was being me like I always am. And I said, well, look, I said, I can't let him get out of the car today. I said, I'm his nana, and I'm not going to let him get out of the car. So what's up? You know, I tried to talk to him on their level.
Yeah.
And the little boy said, well, he knows what he did. I said, well, you tell me what he did. He says, well, he jumped in a one-on-one. Now, here, I'm this old lady. I don't know what a one-on-one
What is a one-on-one? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, a one-on-one, for those who don't know, is a fight between two boys with a circle around them.
Okay.
And they have to fight inside the circle. And nobody is supposed to help anybody else in the fight. But my grandson was the kind of kid that would help.
Yeah, so he went and helped.
He will help at the Y if he's doing arts and craft. He will help at the basketball team if he's playing defense. He's going to be the helper. He helped that day, and that made all 9 of them mad at him. So the little boy that was at my car says, well, he owes us a one-on-one. And I looked at him, I said, what do you mean he owes you a one-on-one? Or he owes all of you a one-on-one? Mm-hmm. I said, that can't happen. I can't let him out. And then I sat back and I looked at the kid and I said, you know what? If you were sitting here where my grandson's sitting and your grandmom or your mom was sitting here where I'm sitting,
You painted a picture.
they wouldn't let you out. I just said it just like that.
Very, it sounds like Jesus.
Yeah. I said, they would
Does.
not let you out.
Yeah.
And then I took it to where grannies go. I said, and they wouldn't let you out. And I'm pointing at each kid in front of my car.
And they started leaving one by one.
No, they didn't. They didn't leave.
Okay.
But I went around to about 8 of them and said, your mom would not let you out, and yours wouldn't let you out, and you out. And I went around like that.
Good for you.
Then the little boy that was close to my window said, you're right, ma'am.
And that's something how you spoke to them.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
Yeah. And it was just, to me,
That's
the spirit.
amazing. I believe that. It's
Yeah.
incredible. What a way. That is, touching. That
And
is,
they parted the ways.
Parted the way and let me drive through.
whoever wants
But
to cast that first stone, go right ahead if you
But
haven't
I
sinned.
did
And
tell
boom, boom,
them-
boom, and every one of them.
So I did say, but look,
a different
on their level, I
Right.
said this. I said, now look, if you catch him over here by himself one day, that's on him. I said, but he's with his nana today. and he can't get out.
There you go.
And they let us through. And I told my grandson, I said, you need to stay away from this part for a while.
Yeah, right.
I said, because they're going to lay in wait for you.
Yeah.
And that was that. I don't think those little boys had anything to do with what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was an experience for me.
It doesn't sound like they would too because of the way, but they,
right.
You taught them a life. Don't think that seed planted in their heads, and that one boy who said that, how it changed. You showed them something they related to, yes, in a respect, yes, because of who you are, but they also were taught something very valuable in that, for sure. Rasheda, how else could we get this information? Tell us so you can take it down. Lewis is going to, so they can learn more about Granny's on Guard. How do we find it?
Okay, first of all, if they want to become my Facebook friend, I'm Rasheeda Ali.
Yeah.
I used to say I'm the pretty one.
Oh, you still are.
It's a lot of Rasheeda Ali's, RASHEEDA on Facebook. And my picture is my grandson's picture, my profile.
So your profile.
But the cover picture is me talking about Cruising with the Queen.
Cruising with the Queen, remember that? And if you guys can check that out with Rasheda, I appreciate you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll keep you in prayer because I know God's blessing you to do something like this. Joanne, thanks so much for telling us about Rasheda because this is a big deal. Listen to part 1 if you haven't already to learn more about Rasheda and her background and radio days in New York and much more. I mean, you got such a plethora of great goodness and which brought you to where we are today. And I'm glad you did return to Columbus, all for a good reason. God bless you. And
thank you.
And
thank you
whatever you do,
me.
We'll be back and give us a call. I'll be more than happy. Joanne will come down. We'll talk to the kids.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That'd be so great.
Great.
Thank you.
Awesome.